This is Miss Bilski. We have Miss. What subjects do you teach, and what clubs, if you run any clubs, do you run?
So I teach language arts for 7th grade, and then I also teach an elective called AVID for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Different clubs. This year I'm going to do UIL Ready Writing. In the past I've done student council and No Place for Hate.
Okay. What made you want to be a teacher?
What made me want to be a teacher? I always knew I wanted to do something with children. I thought about doing like daycare, and I would always play with my stuffed animals and do like little pretend daycare. And then I started sitting up my Barbie dolls on the kitchen table, and I would use the window in my house as a whiteboard, and I'd get markers and I'd draw all over the window. That really upset my mother. So I just always knew I wanted to do something with kids. When I went to college, I knew I wanted to do middle school. I had done some church camps, and I had worked with middle school aged kids, and I really enjoyed it. I have found that middle school kids I can be sarcastic and pretty real with, and they still kind of want to please the teacher. Elementary was just too babyish. I subbed in a kindergarten classroom once, and never again. Never again. And high schoolers are tough. So I just knew I wanted to be a teacher. I actually got hired in an elementary classroom first out of college. So I taught 5th grade for 7 years before finally deciding I wanted to go find a middle school.
Yeah, and I get what you mean about the, like, you can be sarcastic to the, like, middle schoolers,
Yeah.
and I'll be like...
I tell my friends I'm a middle school teacher, and they're like, are you crazy? Middle schoolers are crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what makes it fun.
How long have you been teaching?
I taught 5th grade for 7 years, and I have now been in middle school for 8 years, I think. So about 15 total.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
most teachers I've met have like long teaching careers.
Yeah, there's a big gap between ages of teachers. There's a big...
I was saying my hand. I was like, ow, ow, ow.
Oh, I was like,
No, the bell rings at like 12:06.
Okay. So there's a big gap between ages of teachers. There's a shortage of teachers right now. And so a lot of younger people right now going into college don't necessarily want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So there's different like age gaps. So most of the teachers that are in the system right now have taught for a longer period of time. Not too many new teachers coming in.
What gives you the desire to want to come to work every day?
The desire to come to work. Well, earning a paycheck's important. Got to pay those bills. But I enjoy interacting with students. I enjoy interacting with my coworkers, and just being able to help students learn and figure out what they need so that they can be successful in the future.
How do you make your job unique and special to you?
Well, I taught language arts for a long time, and I got bored. I was tired of doing the same thing over and over, so I was kind of realizing, or just kind of seeing things in the real world that people were struggling with, and that was just basic life skills, being able to collaborate with others, and just manage their lives. And I kind of stumbled upon this program called AVID, and so it's been something that I've done to make it unique for me, is that since I got bored with doing language arts for forever, I found something else that I wanted to teach. And so it allows me to be unique because I'm teaching things, we're doing things in class that aren't necessarily having to take a test about at the end of the year. We're just learning these life skills on how to work with people and just how to be a good person.
You brought up tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like written tests, right? So do you like STAR?
No, I don't really like STAR. I understand the purpose of a STAR test. You know, we want to make sure that you're learning throughout the year. There, in the past, students were graduating high school without being able to read because they were just getting passed on year to year to year. So it's almost like the STAR test is making sure I'm doing my job too. And so just making sure that kids are learning what they're supposed to learn each year. Now there's a ton of stresses that get put on teachers that are handed down to the students. And I don't like that at all. I really think that it just should be like, oh, hey, I need to do my best today on this. Let's get it done. So some sort of evaluation needs to happen when we take the STAR test. But I don't necessarily like how our state or country do those assessments.
What's your least favorite part about teaching?
Probably testing. It's tough seeing kids struggle. I was not a good student. I really didn't learn how to read until I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I struggled with learning. I was in remedial classes. Typically kids learn to read around 5 or 6, so I was behind and I really struggled. So when it came to taking tests, I struggled. And to this day, I still struggle taking tests because I get nervous and anxious. And I start second guessing myself and saying, oh, wait, no, that's not the right answer. I should do this. And I'm like, wait, I don't know about that either. So then I start to freak out a little bit. So if I were to take a test today, I have to take tests for teacher certifications. I get really nervous and anxious, and I can do poorly on it if I let that get to me. So having tests in class, I really don't like.
What do you do in your free time?
In my free time, when I was a younger teacher, I just did school. I just did teaching. I just didn't do anything for fun, and that caused me to have a lot of mental health struggles. And finally, about 5 years ago, I realized that I needed to make sure that I did things for me and to have fun. And so then I started to really learn how to be a runner. And so I've picked up running. So I like to run half marathons. And in November, I'll run my 7th half marathon race. And so that's 13.1 miles. Other things that I do for fun is I like to garden. And I taught myself photography just by watching YouTube. Bought a camera on Craigslist and watched a bunch of YouTube videos to teach myself photography. So I like to do that for fun. My kids hate it because I make them dress up in clothes with collars and khakis, and they think it's the worst thing ever, but I enjoy it.
So, what do you think about video games for free time?
Video games? My dad worked for IBM growing up, so we always had the newest technology. So when Nintendo came out for the very first time, we had that console and played the duck shoot 'em up game and Mario Brothers, and so we always had like the next newest console come out. So I played it when it was around, but then my brother started to hog it and I didn't really care. So car racing games I think are fun, but I don't really play them for fun. But my boys who are in 7th grade and 5th grade are obsessed with video games and probably play like 5 hours a day.
How do you feel about making mistakes?
Mistakes are important. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. You're not challenging yourself. If you're playing it safe and you're always getting things just right, I'm trying to think of something. I don't know. If you're doing something for class and you just kind of do the basics and you get the basic check, 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 I don't think you're challenging yourself. It's important to push yourself beyond someone's expectation. Don't just settle for what somebody else says that's what you need to do. See if you can push yourself further. And when you push yourself further, you're going to make mistakes. And that's okay, because then you learn from that mistake. You can figure out what you did wrong and what you need to do right the next time. So like photography, if I just leave my camera in auto setting, I can take okay pictures in the auto setting, but they're not going to be as maybe artistic or as expression, or the coloring isn't going to be as special. And so then I can adjust my camera settings and explore that. And I'll make a lot of mistakes along that way, but then I learn from them to make even cooler pictures.
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, The Giver, is probably my favorite book, by Lois Lowry. It was probably the first chapter book I ever read in the 7th grade. Like I said earlier, I couldn't read very well, but once it finally clicked, like really clicked, was 7th grade. My interest in reading got really into it, and The Giver was the book that I read. I really liked The Giver because it challenges society's norms, and it's like it's telling you it's okay to question things and to really think things over and make sure you're making choices for you, what's best for you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything similar to like a book, like a favorite movie or TV show that
Let's see here.
has a similar
Similar
vibe?
effect.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a lot of TV shows that I've enjoyed along the way. I really like the show The Office. That's something during the pandemic, we rewatched the whole Office from the first episode to the last, and that was fun seeing it all in order. I love just the opening scenes of The Office. I wish they would just take all the opening scenes and put them together. I'd probably laugh for like 5 hours straight.
I went to Barnes & Noble
Mhm.
recently, and you said that The Giver
Mhm.
was one of your favorite books. If you went to any book place in the world, what would a new book that you would want?
A new book, okay. I really do enjoy, The Giver is kind of that sci-fi fantasy, so I really do enjoy that genre. And that genre tends to be really popular in new books that come out all the time. So I'd probably pick up one of those types of books. And even historical fiction. I really like historical fiction. I learned way more about U.S. history and what events happened along the way in historical fiction than what I actually learned in my classes at school. So I'm trying to think of what some of those titles might. It would be Milkweed by the same author of The Giver. Lois Lowry was another book. It was all about what was called the ghettos, but it's not probably what you think of the ghettos of America. It's the ghettos in Germany where all the Jewish people were rounded up and forced to live in this 1 block radius, and people were like making tunnels in the streets to sneak in food and medical supplies. And in my classes, I did not learn about that experience that led up to Nazi Germany. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I'd probably pick something that is a historical fiction or a science fiction fantasy.
If The Giver had a movie adaptation, would
It does.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
I'm dumb.
No, it's been a few years. Like probably when you were born is when it came out, and I don't think I ever even actually watched it. I didn't want my book to be ruined for me.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
would you watch it?
I feel like books are always better than the movies.
Mm.
If you were given one billboard sign for the entire world to see, what would it say?
Let's see here. Probably be kind. So many people are, whether they mean it or not, just seem very vengeful. So, as middle schoolers, it's very easy to focus on ourselves and what we want, and it's harder to look at another person's perspective on a situation. There might be one thing that happens in the hallway that really makes someone upset, but there's going to be 7 different perspectives of what happened in that event. And it's really easy to jump to conclusions and react to an event. But I think if something were to happen, I think if we just had the idea of just be kind to kind of, how can I stop and think and address a situation, maybe before reacting on impulse of aggression, words, or having revenge in mind or anything like that. So I think be kind is important.
I just walk away from those kind of situations. Like if I know somebody's about to start arguing with me, I'm just like, I gotta go to class, and I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll literally be like at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta go do something for my class. We can talk later though.
Yeah, I myself, like with a peer, am naturally not a confrontational person. It makes me feel very anxious and nervous. I don't like to argue with people. I don't like to confront somebody if they make me mad. And so if something were like that to happen, I would probably walk away, but then I would probably let it like fester. I would just keep thinking about it over and over and over until something else got me distracted.
Yeah.
But so I think being able to address somebody when somebody makes you mad is important, but think of it in a way of being kind. How can you talk to them about what's going on and see how you could resolve that conflict?
This question isn't on that sheet
Mhm.
or the thing, but I asked Mr. Ohanian, with COVID last year, do you think it was harder to make the connection with your students that you would if they were in an actual classroom?
Times 10, yes. As a teacher, a lot of the things that make me happy as a teacher, that make me feel satisfied as a teacher. Well, I knew I couldn't be something other than a teacher because I need a job that makes me feel like I have a purpose. If I were at a job at an office just doing paperwork, I would not be a happy person. I need to feel satisfied that what I'm doing has a positive effect on other people. So teaching virtually was a huge emotional struggle for me because like nobody turned their cameras on. I couldn't see their faces. I didn't know if they understood if I was explaining something effectively or not. And no one asked questions. So a few people who have enormous personalities kind of stuck out a little bit throughout the year, and I got to know them. But really, the most people that I got to know were the ones in person.
Yeah.
And it was easier for me to talk to them. And, I could make Earl stay up late in class and talk to him because he was at home and it was my lunch. And, Alex was ready to run out at any moment, but, I got to see your personality in class. And so being able to identify with certain kids made it easier, but not seeing their faces, not seeing them realize what they learned or seeing how they're growing does take teaching hard. It does make teaching harder.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're good for today. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.